sniffing is habit-forming, and a person soon becomes dependent upon it, even to the point of fighting with other glue sniffers over it. Their glue-sniffing habit often links them with criminal activities. Worse yet, the glue-sniffing habit can lead to more serious addictions with other products, such as narcotics. Glue-sniffing is a dangerous practice. It causes impulsive and unpredictable behavior. The glue sniffer may develop feelings of reckless abandon and careless impulsiveness. His foolish behavior often endangers his own life and the lives of others as well. One teenager, after sniffing glue, stood on the railroad tracks ready to fight an oncoming train. He nearly lost his life. A 14-year-old attacked a woman, forced her out of her car, then smashed it into 3 other autos. Another teenager jumped off a low building because he was convinced he could fly. A 16-year-old glue sniffer picked a fight with 4 husky Marines after a glue sniffing session. He couldn't believe he had failed to win the fight. A 19-year-old stabbed to death his best friend after they had spent an evening sniffing glue. The glue sniffing habit is spreading rapidly. At one time, it was confined mostly to the larger cities and metropolitan areas. Recent reports indicate the problem is spreading to smaller towns and cities, and your city probably has a glue sniffing problem already among its youth. It has become the most serious problem faced by juvenile authorities in working with delinquents and youthful lawbreakers. One Utah junior high school found glue in 150 of the 1,000 lockers they checked. Some contained as many as 12 tubes of airplane glue. In one rural area in California, 14 youngsters were arrested in one day for glue sniffing. The District of Columbia recorded 300 cases in one 2-month period. Los Angeles had 77 glue sniffing cases in a 3-month period. And Phoenix, Arizona authorities handled 63 offenders in 4 months. The number is growing. The attraction to glue sniffing seems to prevail among boys and girls from 8 to 17 years of age. The average age of glue sniffers is 12. They are rarely younger than 8, but often older than 17. The glue sniffing habit is no respecter of economic status. People from the wealthiest to the poorest are affected by it. The effects of glue sniffing progress through several stages. First, there is mild intoxication, followed by excitement and a good all-over feeling. Often the youngster feels impulsive and aggressive. He's ready to fight. Then he becomes destructive and may try to harm people around him. After excitement comes drunkenness. The sniffer becomes uncoordinated and his speech is slurred. Then comes double vision, a ringing in the ears, and drowsiness. With continued sniffing, he progresses rapidly to stupor, unconsciousness, and coma. Glue sniffing can cause death. Many have already died from the toxic effects of glue sniffing. Other deaths have occurred which were not reported as related to glue sniffing. The brain is not the only organ affected by glue sniffing. The sniffer may develop blood in his urine, an indication of damage to his kidneys. He may develop damage that is serious enough to cause death. He can develop aplastic anemia, a condition in which the bone marrow is damaged so that it cannot manufacture blood cells. This too can cause death. Loss of memory is another result of glue sniffing. The sniffer cannot remember what he has done under its influence. Even after committing a terrible crime, the sniffer often asks in all innocence, "What have I done wrong?" Glue sniffers are a serious community problem for a number of reasons. First, they spread the glue sniffing habit by luring their friends into taking part. They create a crime problem. Often, they resort to stealing to meet their increasing desire for the glue. They are wide open targets for the peddlers of narcotics, since they are likely to try for a greater thrill than glue sniffing offers. They may seek this in marijuana or the heavier narcotics. It is possible to do something to halt the rise in glue sniffing. It will require the work of both parents and children. Education of parents and children concerning the dangers to health and life in glue sniffing is the first step. Glue and plastic cements should be made less available in the stores. Take them out of the serve-yourself category. Less toxic solvents are needed. Research can help the manufacturers discover these. Unpleasant odors can be added to the glue to make sniffing less desirable. Youngsters who sniff glue do not start out as criminals. They are individuals in need of psychiatric help. They need treatment to discover the emotional disorders that cause them to resort to glue sniffing in the first place. Parents don't need to play detective to know if their children are engaged in glue sniffing. The signals are clear, and alert, observant parents can read them. If one or more of these signs is observed, immediate steps to protect the youngster's life should be taken. If signs of glue sniffing are noticed by parents or teachers, the youngster should be referred to a doctor. The physician will decide if psychiatric help is needed. The child should be treated as an individual with emotional problems, not as a criminal. Take another look at that innocent-looking tube of glue. Remember, glue causes illness and death to the sniffer and makes him potentially dangerous to those around him. There's big trouble in that tube, and the person who becomes a companion to the tube will receive his share of the pain and suffering it contains.
All right, just turn the volume down on this real quick. There we go. I got about a 10-second delay today. Real quick, you guys can hear me okay? Do I need to move the microphone closer? Again, it's going to take about 10 seconds for me saying this to I start getting any responses and replies. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of cool things. You guys a bunch of dope fiends out there sniffing glue? And I remember these things when I was a kid. And by the way, that was a real book, Model Airplanes, Decadent and Depraved. That actually is a real book that a glue trooper sent me to. And I read a couple of pages that were for free out there. And I was like, okay, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I mean, I remember them during their little drug things talking about kids don't smoke, don't smoke marijuana and don't snort glue. And that was about the sum total of it. It was hardly the epidemic that they made it sound out to be there. But anyway, so I'm here by myself, so I'm going to be trying to read the comments while doing this. And you tell I got things turned around today. Now you'll see me go over this way from time to time when I have to do something on the computer, because the whole thing with the partition falling over behind me and it just wasn't working. I figured this is a better backdrop, and it's just the side of my desk, and you can see all the models up here. But anyway, I was getting ready to got up this morning, decided I'd put an intro together for this, and then I just happened to stumble. I was looking for, maybe some cool footage about models. I stumbled on it. I was like, oh, I have got to share that with the gang. So anyway, all kinds of cool stuff going on. I do have a few notes today of things I wanted to talk about. First off, let me just move the cameras a little bit down here. See if you guys can see the cool t-shirt that Tom Daniel sent me. TD sent me this t-shirt, and it's really nice. I think this is the biggest size they make. And let me show you the back of it. There's the back of it. Let's scroll that up to the top where it's. And you know what? I got another picture of it for you. Let me show you a picture just of the logo. Kelly put these together, and I believe they're out on his website. So you guys can grab one of those if you want one. And I think it's just awesome. I have to get one of those. I was thinking about this model the other day before he even sent this to me, because I just, you know how you'll think about things, and then one day a memory will pop in your mind you haven't thought about in years, and it's the kind of thing you couldn't remember on purpose if you tried, but when the right stimulus pops in your head. The very first Tom Daniel model I saw was the big, I guess it was 112 rod, Red Baron hot rod, and the deal was is that one of the neighborhood kids lived about 3 blocks from us, was building one. And I remember the sun was setting. I was there with my sister because I was too young to be out by myself, I guess. And I'm gonna say this was around '69, and I remember seeing him build it, and I was very impressed with it even back then, partly just how big it was. And then TD sent me that shirt, and it just joggled that memory. And as much as I deal with models, it's kind of surprising I don't have more of those memory joggles. Every once in a while, something will just pop into my head. Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that in years. Kind of cool there. But beautiful T-shirt. And I want to thank TD for that. And the whole idea is the classic show ride is that the vehicle is actually made and it still exists today. There might have been more than one made, but I know there was at least one made, and it was used in advertisements and stuff. So there's a difference between sniffing glue and just catching a whiff. I mean, I get lightheaded sometimes this day. One of the glue troopers I was chatting with was telling me he actually knew the family. I think they were involved with testers or something, who had put some kind of horseradish extract into the glue to make it an irritant if you tried to sniff it. That was how they combated it. And we all remember the gross stuff, that the toxic free that you couldn't sniff or huff. And when I did read the guy's book on sniffing glue, one thing did pop into mind that was interesting. Apparently, and this comes as no shock because people always find a way to get high, is that the inhaling of various things apparently goes way back to the 1700s, the earliest paint thinners and stuff. People learned they could cop a high off of it for the longest time. And I'm sorry, I got that box up. Den image up a little sooner. You know what? I think I'll just leave it there. I will take the email down. Sniffing glue was just the latest thing. There were all other kinds of household chemicals and inhalants that people were sniffing. I think we all remember the leaded gas, and it had actually kind of a pleasant odor. Didn't necessarily get you high, but you could get a little woozy from it. Did not realize how much that was rotting our brains away, but then again, look what it did for the Romans. Supposedly the Romans, the insanity was because they had lead-lined goblets, or so I've been told. Just real quick, where's the... So, well, I guess, you know what? I guess I will use this picture. Had that little place. Anywho, so huffing glues, nothing new, and but I was surprised that they had all this rather heavy-handed propaganda. But then again, this is the same generation that gave us Reefer Madness, if you guys remember that. I've never actually seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but apparently that was all part of a propaganda campaign to outlaw marijuana, and I'm just glad they didn't do the same thing to outlaw model airplanes or kit models. But I do know some of you guys have told me about going to stores, especially in places like New York, where things tend to be a little more restrictive. And you were telling me that, you went into buy model airplane glue and getting a hard time from the clerk, and you're not going to huff this, are you, kid? Anyway. So the other reason that I have this picture, these are all my empty boxes, and of course they're like, Russian nesting dolls. They're boxes inside of boxes inside of boxes. And I haven't been able to bring myself to throw them away because a long time ago I started, I get a big fan of the box art den. Now, let me real quick here. That's Gene Aker, and that's how you say, he said that's how you say his name, is Aker. And that's him in a B-24. I think he took a ride in. So he was telling me that I sent him a couple of the old catalogs that I had, and but I remember when I first stumbled onto the box art den when I was doing I started off my very first Aurora Revell Aurora monogram history video, my kit model videos, a few years ago when I first got curious and started wondering what happened in my childhood and doing the backgrounds, which led into this whole thing. So he and the guys over at allmodelkits.com and at ScaleMates, I was, of course, grabbing their imagery and borrowing it, but they all gave me permission. I got a couple of emails. Sorry, guys. But they understood, we're all trying to keep the hobby alive, and they were all very gracious and let me use it, use images from it, which I still do to this day. But what I was shocked at was on eBay and saw how much people were charging just for old boxes, vintage boxes, and how much more kit cost if it has the vintage box and the instruction sheet with it. And that just led me to start hoarding all of my empty boxes. And anyway, the Box Art Den, as you guys know, is and Mike Machat's involved with it, and they're a great historical source for anybody that's interested in the history of the kit model box art and everything. They have a lot of great examples out there, and they restore the old images about, I don't know, one a week or so, and do beautiful work. And I bring this up because, you know, it's guys like this that are really creating what's sort of a niche national or international resource. They're holding on to history that would, you know, frankly, otherwise be forgotten. And given that a lot of us had the privilege to grow up in kind of the glory days of kit models, I'm glad there are people out there that have enough of a love affair that they're willing to put forth their time and effort and frequently expense to to keep this alive. And I've got a couple more history videos planned. I'll probably borrow some more pictures, but there's some things you can't find. If it wasn't for Paul down in New Zealand, I wouldn't have anything for Panda models of New Zealand. And of course, they were really more of a, let's take someone else's kits. I think they were mostly Nito and Fujimi kits they had reboxed. But the point is, they still did it. It was still a company. And, as Lance Geiger, the history guy says, it's history that deserves to be remembered. And so let me take a second here, read a couple of comments. I'm prattling on, and I refuse to grow up. Hey, I got to grow old. You don't have to grow up. So anyway, I just wanted to give Gene a shout out and just tell everybody, if you haven't been to the Box Art Den, and I imagine if you're watching this channel, you probably have been. But if you haven't been, give it a perusal. And if you're a young model builder who doesn't have the nostalgic buzz that a lot of us do, you get to see how kind of things were done in the old days. Of course, you can sort of see some of that with Atlantis. They're still repopping a lot of the old stuff. They have a massive mold bank that they were able to acquire. And they're hopefully going to be, in the next year or so, going to be kind of upping their game here a little bit. They've got a lot of stuff they can put out. They put out a few things that I don't know how well they're selling, like the Amoeba, which is a, kind of a cool kit and good for science class. I'm not sure how many, model builders would buy one, but then again, if you built one as a kid, there's a nostalgic buzz. But they got Jim Keeler helping them and some other folks who have a lot of history in the model business. So hopefully we'll see some of our other favorite kits pop out. Of course, when they open these old molds, a lot of times they're not usable, and it is a substantial investment to make a new mold, and even if you have the old one, and even to fix one. So they, sure, like a lot of kit model companies, they're not exactly swimming in dollars, so they have to make business decisions based on a combination of popular demand and how many they think they'll sell, and how much it's going to cost to get them in production. And I forget offhand, Nick Argento had over at Glencoe had given me some numbers a while back, but we basically have about a tenth of the injection molding and mold making capacity in this country we used to have. But on the upside, of course, with modern equipment, molds can be made more accurately, more quickly, which is obvious by some of the incredible kits that are coming out today, which kind of brings up one question. When is a kit too detailed, or does such a thing exist? Because if you make a kit that's got essentially too many details, especially if they have to be glued on, a builder has the option just to go, I'm not going to put that on. But everybody's got a different level of building. I've heard some kits like the Fujimi automobile kits and even the old IMC kits had so much detail and so many parts that even advanced modelers got a little aggravated with them. It's like, they put it on more for the challenge because they're like, no one's ever going to see this. No one's going to know if I leave it off, which you guys know me. It's like, this is on the inside. No one's ever going to see it. Ding. You ever notice if you have a part you don't want to put on, you will keep finding it, but if you drop a part you need, you will never find it. Don't ask me why. I didn't build the universe. I just live here. So anyway, I just wanted to give Gene a shout out for the great work he's doing over the Box Art Den, and Mike and others who have all helped with it. I just think it's a great resource, and I need to take a second here to read some comments. By the way, there's a small possibility that Tom Daniel may actually tune into this one or watch it later. I had spoken to him on the phone. Great guy, a lot of fun to talk to. Somebody asked me if he knew Big Daddy Roth, and I'm pretty sure, only had this phone call a week ago. You think I'd remember it better. No, probably just too giddy with, fanboy excitement. But anyway, a lot of these guys had, crossed paths and they kind of orbited in the same world, but didn't necessarily know each other that well. Although I do know that Jim Keeler was a very close friend of Big Daddy Roth, and the thing that always cracks me up is, mind you, I'm getting this third, fourth hand, so take it for what it's worth. That although Big Daddy Roth, Thunder Chief has more parts than the real Chet. Yeah, leave it a trumpeter. I was going to get their big 132nd scale SBD, which is back when it was only $128, and I saw the parts on it. I was like, I'll stay with the monogram 148s for now. Plus, I had that giant Guilos one hanging up in the TARDIS. I'm like, where am I going? It gets down to where am I going to put this thing? But anyway, getting back to apparently, despite his image with the wild mustache and everything and beard, apparently, as I understand it, the Big Daddy was actually a very generous Christian guy, very, very religious and everything, and he knew how to put on the show and everything, but it was all kind of a persona. Apparently, he was an extremely good-hearted guy. And Jim had nothing but great things. Jim Keeler had nothing but great things to say about him, and they were very, very close. It's my understanding that the one person that really didn't like Big Daddy Roth, and I can't back this up, this is just stuff I've heard out in the world, was old George Barris. The guy who owned the company that made all the Wild Hollywood cars. Apparently, he didn't care for the image, thought it was hurting hot rodding, depending on who you ask. So, take that for what it's worth. I can't back that up. That's just something I heard. But by all other accounts, Big Daddy was apparently a real good guy. And so anyway, on to other things. Anyway, just a shout out to Gene Aker for all the great work he's doing in the box art, and everybody out there that's helping him with it. And when he asked if he could, if I could send him a couple of catalogs, I said, dude, absolutely. You're doing God's work. Now let me see here. Other things we were going, and this is not all of my empty boxes. Like I say, there's a Russian nesting doll kind of situation, but there's more behind that. And the unbuilt kits, the unbuilt stash, which is to the left of it, doesn't count because those are all individual boxes because they still have the models in them. So, let me just bring that down for a second. Now, before I go any further, I have to make an admission/confession. Let's call it an admission of defeat. I was warned. I did not listen. I simply went, ha ha ha, I'll handle it. But I was warned that trying to make Patton's Power Wagon out of a 135th scale half-track and a 124 scale Bugatti wasn't going to work. And I figured I'll figure something out. And I looked at the parts and it's not happening. So as I was perusing my options today, I thought, you guys said I was going to make it a half-track and type vehicle like the Rommel's Rod, which I have right here. Actually, this is the Rommel's Rod that I built, and this is the one that TD sent me, and the kit's still in there. Orange Tabby sent me this one, and I built that, and then TD sent me one that he hand-signed, and I don't think that's one of the only kits I've got I'll probably never build. But I had thought about making a half-track kind of design, but then I thought, man, maybe I'm stealing too much. But when I started putting the half-track and everything together, I was like, okay, that's not going to work. But I have a bunch of tanks that you guys have sent me and some that I bought. I got the Monogram Revell Panzer Kampfwagen 4. I got a 135th scale Stuart, the Israeli version of the Sherman, and a couple I got the Walker Bulldog. So, well, you know what? I can take the tracks off of one of those, and that'll scale out about right. And as I was looking at the kits, I was like, I just couldn't bring myself to butcher them. So I'm going to have to figure out something else. But since the actual power wagons from that era, and by the way, they did have power wagons back then, were wheeled vehicles, and maybe I'll just make it a multi-wheeled vehicle or something. What was that? Oh. Oh, that was my communicator turning off. I have to stay in contact with the ship at all times.
Enterprise Bridge, Lieutenant Uhura.
Not now. I'm on the interweb. Call you back later. Just had that up as I forget it turns itself off after a while. And the more dial on it actually does. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually works. I don't think it's going to show. This is a Bluetooth unit that my wife got for me. And every once in a while I'll take it out, and I was out charging it today, and I'll take it out and hook it to my phone and make calls on it. And of course people just look at me and shake their heads. Pardon me for having a life. I apologize for nothing. So anyway, so I'm going to have to completely rethink my genius idea. I admit to defeat my idea is not going to work, but I will figure something out. I'm thinking about maybe getting 8, because I have a lot of wheels left over from 124 scale cars and trucks and stuff. I'm thinking about maybe making like an 8-wheel rear bogie and something like that. And then, like you get off a track. Ooh. And I have. Okay, I'm not going to say anything because last time I bragged about what I was going to do, it backfired. But I think I have an idea. Anywho, I'm just reading some comments real quick. Yeah, I'd heard that Big Daddy did great airbrush work. I'd heard that from somebody. Anyway, there are no defeats in kit model building, just changes of direction. Let's see. One question I wanted to ask you guys, and I actually heard from somebody who's watching right now. You guys might remember I built that little Tiasa character, the little Gundam girl, and my wife loved it. She's over in her collection. She was wondering, after I built that big perfect grade one that Mr. Shenbo sent me, did they make the girls that big? And unfortunately for her, they don't. Yeah, she would love one of a big size one, but I thought I would ask you guys in case somebody out there knew about one. Okay, here is one of the things I meant to talk about on the last live stream that I didn't get to. And this, of course, is totally opinion. I want you guys to chime in. And it's about building vintage models. Now, you guys know I'm a builder. I can count all the kit models on one hand that I have that I won't build, and I don't have to use my thumb or my little finger. But the Tom Daniel kit right there is probably one of 2 or 3 that I'm like, I'm not building that. But I know a lot of people have issue with building some of the Holy Grail kits, and some of them are really expensive. There's the money issue, and there's the rarity issue. Once you build it, it can't be replaced. Now, I would say if you're going to build one of the old kits, provided it's not something that there's plenty of left around, then, certainly you want to do the very best job you can. If I were to build I actually have, the one I have is the Hawk Beta 1, and when I get around to building that, and it's on my short stack, but when I get around to building that, I intend to really slow down and try to make a grade A kit out of it. Not like the hot mess I made out of the Sweepy, which I know was a Pegaso repop, but I just figured this would be a quick build, and it was one of those kits that just would not stop being a problem. And it only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts, not including the stand. Nothing fit right. I actually finished it today. In fact, I was working on it just before I came in here, and it's such a hot mess that none of you will ever get to see a close-up picture of it. I'll probably take a photo of it at some distance where it looks halfway presentable. I was impressed with how good the decals on it, although some of them lifted off today. I had to use some microset, but other than that, once they shrunk on, I'm just surprised that a 50-year-old, 40-year-old decals were in that good a shape. So kudos on to their decal maker. But I personally think kits are made to be built. I suppose if I got something like one of the old early Aurora kits, like the red plastic BF-109 or the yellow Zero that was in the original box, I might not build that because, first off, they're not really that great as a kit goes. But that might, for me personally, cross that threshold of, this really shouldn't be built. And that brings up another issue about building a vintage kit, and that is, what if that vintage kit is the only kit that was ever made of something that you want? If somebody sent me like a virgin Aurora Rat Patrol kit, I probably wouldn't build it, because I could go get a couple of Willis. It's not something that couldn't be recreated. I could get a couple of kit model Willis Jeeps, and some 50 cals and pintle mounts and make a Rat Patrol scene. That's not something I couldn't make easily enough. Kind of surprised no one's ever remade, because there's your marketing opportunity. If you're some kit maker out there making a Jeep, making the World War II Jeep, why not just throw in a couple of machine guns and figures and go, here's your Rat Patrol set. The license for something like that, if it's not in the public domain, can't be very much. You think about it, I'm kind of surprised no one's ever done that. Oh well, go figure. But given that to be honest, it was kind of a crappy kit. I mean, when I was a little kid and played with my brother until it broke it, and that was different. But I was like 5. But I look at it now, I'm like, what did you? And don't even get me started on the Anzio Beach thing. Those are rare. If you can find one that's intact, I wouldn't build them. But not only because they're rare and worth a lot of money, but also because they just look like garbage when you're done. It was just not well executed. And I just don't see that being anything. If I'm going to make a diorama or something like that, I'm going to use the proper stuff, not just what Aurora had in production, so I had to throw in a box and slap a label on. And which is ironic, in a way, the fact that they're kind of, as bad as they are, sort of makes them more valuable. That's got to be the nostalgia thing. But anyway, if I had like a first run Hawk F90 or Aurora Panther, I mean, like, this is one of the first ones they ran in the old, box with the square label and little sunrise Aurora on it. Yeah, those I probably wouldn't build, because you can get such nicer. But if I got the Westinghouse atomic, was it the Westinghouse atomic nuclear power plant? That's the only people that ever made that. So if you wanted to build that model, that's the only option you have. I don't think it was ever repopped. So yeah, if you got one, and those things have gotten expensive too. It's kind of, I guess you could call it a holy grail. I don't know if it'd be a holy grail kit, but they're not cheap. But, oh, by the way, everybody, I would say that Honey appreciates your kind thoughts and wishes, but she's a cat and could care less what we think. But she is eating normally, and the anesthetic's mostly worn off. Well, she's not eating normally, but she has been eating and using the litter box. So she's kind of 75% on the way back. And it was oral surgery, and she came through it okay. But she's doing a lot better. So let's see. Yeah, Patton did use the Dodge WC command car. That's correct. What I'm thinking about. Okay, I'll just tell you what popped into my head. I've already told you about what I plan to do for the Canadian build. I plan to put the Elsinore beer trailer, like Lost in the Woods, and the van, red-green van, with him finding the beer, which pretty much explains, Possum Lodge. But what I was thinking was I could steal the trucks off that and just like have the trailer up on jacks and use those wheels on the back end of the Bugatti, and that would be the basis for Patton's Power Wagon. That's kind of where my head went, and then I would have to scratch build the body. I could probably use the driver's compartment and scratch build a rear compartment and everything, and frame it out and put his office back there and his air stair door for his generalship to march down like the god he thought he was. That's kind of where my brain went, and now that I've shared it with you, I'm kind of committed to do it. And I've got to find some scoops. I said headers, I meant scoops. Although one glue trooper did send me a really cool way to use lead rod to make headers. But I need to get some, like the shaker top, not shaker top, but the big scoops like dragsters and everything have on them to put on the top of the front, to give it that TD look. So that's where my head went with that. Okay, on to other things. All right. Okay. This little character is being made by my sister-in-law. Let's take that down. That is our little gluey guy. I haven't given him a name yet. That's our glue trooper character. She is hand making that for me. She does arts and crafts, and she's quite good at it. This is her little workstation. She was working on some other stuff. And there is a possibility in the future. And by the way, this is all molded out of clay or whatever that material is she uses. Everything, the doll, all this, it is all completely handmade. And needless to say, it's extremely time consuming. It takes over a week to knock one of these things out. But this isn't finished yet, obviously. We're going to get some decal sheet to put the logo on it and everything. And again, I want to thank Noel Domingo for coming up with that character. She has an Etsy store, and she's considering possibly making some of these things to order if somebody wants some at a little bit later date. She's kind of busy right now, and of course this isn't complete yet. But I know I don't do merch because I just really don't have the time. But she might be able to make a few of these. But I can tell you right now, it takes her a long time. They won't be cheap. I'm guessing a completed one's probably going to run about $120 because it takes her quite a while and they won't all be identical because they're not made in a mold or anything. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, but that'll be my little, and she's got another little character that I'll show you guys another time because it's not done yet, but just anyway, that there might be something out there in the future. Anybody wants one, and I think he's adorable. So let's see, what else did I have? The Stenson disaster. Okay, you guys might remember me griping about the Stenson and how that paint kept leaving holes. Well, I put the second and third coats on it today, and it finally started to even out. But I had to do what I said I wasn't going to do, and I basically had to just blast the crap out of it. It just, I don't know what it is with that yellow paint. And the red does the same. The blue did the same. The olive drab does not. It could be because it's a gloss. The drab paints don't seem to have this problem. It's strictly a gloss thing using those Tamiya colors. I'm going to run an experiment. I'm going to get something that and hit it with the Tamiya surfacer and see if I have that same problem when I use a surfacer, because I didn't on the Pibber. So it seems like these Tamiya paints, these lacquers they use, are specifically designed to it does have a black base, Chris. There actually is a black base under there. I originally shot it with the Tamiya semi-gloss black, taped off the windows and hit it with this, but I'm guessing that's not the same as using the surfacer material. And my guess is because that surfacer dries very flat and has a, for lack of a better word, I'll call it a coarse surface. And I think fish eyes, that's a good way to put it. I don't know what causes that to happen, but what I'm going to do, I'm almost certain that these paints are specifically made to go on top of Tamiya surfacer. And if you use anything else, you run the risk of it just being too smooth or something. And it could be. It very well could be. But this one had the black semi-gloss one on without any argument. It adhered beautifully, had a smooth coat. When I hit it with the yellow, it just fish-eyed, and I don't know. It is Tamiya lacquer. Yes, that's the Tamiya color. And yellow gloss, yes, that is yellow gloss. And so another coat or two should get the nooks and crannies. Give it a couple of hard days of harden. I think I'll hit it with some clear coat before I put on the blue. Tape it off and put the blue on. And this is turning into the sweepy. It's starting to be a very aggravating thing. The kit's extremely simple, but the paint is starting to be the real aggravation. I think it's to me a lacquers on an old Pegaso kit, and part of me is thinking that it's just that this stuff is specifically designed to go on their own product. But but like I say, I didn't have any trouble with the flats. It's only the gloss colors that seem to do this. Had the exact same problem with the pickup truck. I didn't sneeze. Everybody seems to have a different opinion. Some people think brown is a better base color. But what I'm going to do is grab something off the shelf, some very basic kit, hit it, maybe a couple of them, hit it with that surfacer, and then hit it again with these colors and see if they give me that kind of trouble. Because I got a pretty good feel. Because like I say, on the PBR, the PBR, the Patrol Boat River, I shot it with the, let's see, what did I hit it with for? Yeah, I hit it with the primer. See, I shot it green, hit it with the primer, taped it off, hit it with the surfacer, and then shot it with the red and didn't have any problem. The PT boat only came out okay because I did like I did here. I just blasted the heck out of it about the third try. And you're right about washing the models before you paint them, but in this case, like I say, it was going over a solid coat of semi-gloss black. So I don't buff as a base. Okay, buff. I'll give that a try. But anyway, I'll get it to work out one way or another. This is probably going to be sit beside the sweepy on the back of the shelf somewhere. But you know what? One thing's for sure. I am definitely not an Alfred Wong. Now, I contacted Mr. Wong today on Facebook. I haven't heard back from him, or at least I didn't see it. I wanted to mention him because several of you guys have sent me his work, and he's a phenomenal builder, both kits and scratch build. That's like, I forget, a 124 scale or something, a huge X-Wing. But I went and looked at a lot of his work, and it's phenomenal. It's nice to go out and see stuff like that to motivate yourself, provided you don't say that, hey, I want to make one just like that. But this gave me an idea. So the person who sent me the pictures of this, and that was just purely for kicks and giggles. And I have a little trouble doing this because I have trouble getting an expensive kit and not making it the way it's my best to try to make the way it's supposed to be. But I was thinking about that would, because he's got the tiger's teeth or something. Imagine how cool something like an X-Wing would look with like flying tiger's markings, camo, the shark's mouth and everything, and you could put like a Stuka in the Imperial colors. I had an old beat up Su-25 years ago, and I put it in Klingon markings, and I was like, my God, it looks like a Klingon plane. And I guess, the fun you can have, making these kind of cool fantasy builds. And I've done a few of them, and I just think it's a way to have a lot of fun with the subject matter. And I'm thinking a P40 in Rebel markings, the Messerschmitt or the Zero in the Imperial markings and stuff. That would just make a cool little dogfight scene. Or the same thing, do the TIE. And Trey actually did a TIE fighter in sort of Luftwaffe colors. And but you could, that solar panels on the TIE fighter, if you got the one that has the full solar panels, it kind of begs to have a big Maltese cross painted on them. That was just kind of just something I thought would be kind of kicks and giggles. I imagine all of us have done something like that at some point. And I was thinking, P40 and Rebel marking dressed up like an X-Wing, and maybe a Thunderbolt painted up like a Y-Wing or something like that. And no. I used to say that the X-Wing was the P-51 Mustang of outer space, and that the Y-Wing was the Hawker Hurricane of outer space. So it'd have to be a Hawker Hurricane made up in Rebel markings with a P-51 in Rebel markings against a TIE fighter in Luftwaffe markings, and maybe a Tidarium shuttle in Imperial Japanese markings, and perhaps one of those TIE bombers in Italian markings, something like that, or whatever you want to do. That's to me the TIE fighter, sort of the ME-109 or A6M20 of space. They made them quick. They made a lot of them, but Anyway, but I wanted just to give a nod to Mr. Wong for just some really incredible work that he's done there and keeping people motivated. All right. Let's see. I had some other stuff here, I think. Really? That's all I had? I spent all this time downloading pictures and that's all I got for you? Huh. Okay. I disappoint myself. Yeah, let's just stretch this out a little bit then. And we shall just chat for the... Wow. It's funny, you put this stuff together and you think you've got all this material. Oh, look at these pictures I've gotten. Oh, I did manage to finish the little helicopter. In fact, I actually do have a picture of that I can show you. Just a second here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Up close you can see all the blemishes. I might go in at some point and put some black decal along the edges there to tighten up that red. But you can see where it bled through where the rivets are at. Oh, and speaking of which, it's on the other side. I did something. I don't think I took a picture of the other side. Let me see real quick. Something kind of interesting of sorts happened that I can tell you about. I think they're all from the same, the pictures look like they're from the same side here. But anyway, I deliberately dirtied up the ramp and everything a little bit. But on the other side, there's some red paint that's streaked, because what I did was I left the windows out because the entire nose section was off while I was painting it, and the front end, the rear end opened up. So I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the windows in with, put some tape on a stick and put the windows in after I'm done painting. So I won't have to tape them off. I'll be guaranteed there won't be any seepage or bleed. That part worked. The problem was I was using a little pipette, a little eyedropper looking thing, to eyedrop a little of the ultra thin Tamiya from the inside. Well, apparently I squeezed or had a little too much in there, and enough of it went on that it seeped through, hit the paint on the outside, and made it run. So that was a new experience. But, not the end of the universe. That's the worst thing that happens to you in a day. Then you're not doing so bad. But from a distance, it looks okay, but up close to it, I dirtied it up on purpose because all of the helicopters I've seen that were out flying the line for real, had some grit and grime on them. But at some point, I'm going to have to go and get some decal or something to clean up those edges because they're starting to bug me. Okay. So, let's see, what was the other thing we had? Okay, we talked about building the vintage model kits. I should read some comments real quick. Oh, you're building Panzer IV tray? Yeah. Yeah, I actually built one a while back for the Godzilla movie versus the Wehrmacht. And right out of the box, I had to melt it and break it up. And it was very hard for me to do. I think I'm going to have some issues kit bashing because I'm kind of it's a perfectly good model. I can't take the saw to it. What am I doing? What if it doesn't work? I will have wasted styrene for nothing. Now, I actually have an answer for this one. Somebody asked, what is the worst kit on the shelf? And I'm going to go with that sweepy I just did. So what is the worst kit you have on your shelf? Not worst kit in a box that you think is going to be a bit. I mean the worst one you have right now on your shelf that you've built, that you've probably put in the back of the shelf and never show it to your friends. I'll give you guys a second to answer that. And let's see. Oh, wow. I just realized this thing hasn't been scrolling. Yeah, I love building the old stuff too, Chris. I partly for nostalgia. It's fairly straightforward stuff. They can be made to look nice. This is going to sound silly, but some of the kits that weren't molded quite right, you do a real hard job to make them look good. And when they look good, their shape isn't perfect. But there's a certain I don't know if the word's pleasure, but it's kind of cool in a way. I don't know why. I was found an old, 1960s or 70s vintage version of Fine Scale Modeler. I was looking at the reader gallery, and this guy built a Bearcat, and I forget who made it, but it was, by today's standards, a pretty basic kit. And it didn't look like it was shaped 100% right. Certainly, like the tail seemed to be a bit thick, wide. It was like not exactly perfect. The workmanship was flawless. But I was thinking this was their big premier model. Today they wouldn't show that because it's got too many flaws in the actual kit. But I thought it, beautiful work, but a rather uninspired model, but it was typical of the model for that era. And it makes me realize how far we've come, where you can buy, compressed landing gear struts and tires that are pre-deformed to show the weight on them and everything, and all these aftermarket photo etch parts and everything that, you're doing it for you because the world's never really going to appreciate all the effort that you put into it. But you do. And then not the kind of thing you would ever build for someone else because when I say build for someone else, it's like if you build a model and give it to a kid, you're not going to give him the one that's got $60 worth of photo etch in it. But if you're building it for someone else, like for an office display under glass, then of course you go whole hog all out. And that kind of brings up the whole thing about if someone asks you to build a model for them, how far do you go with it? You kind of got to gauge your audience. I've built models for people that they literally just wanted the profile in one color. And I've built models for people who, for my brother's law partner who served on the USS Knox, and I got the white ensign models USS Knox. I had to go all out, put all the details on it I could because he served on the thing. And he knew what everything was. It was on a plaque, and everything. And he was gonna, he could really appreciate it. But the dealing with all that photo etch guardrail. And the Knox had this walkway that went around the single stack. And that was the first time I dealt with that much photo etch. And it's challenging. And I have a lot of respect for people who can build those little, Metal Earth models and stuff or get all that photo etch on there right. When I was putting the monogram F-106 together, which is a great kit, by the way. I drilled out the attitude indicator and went and found one of those pins that had the round ball on the end and painted it half black and half gray, so and everything, and glued it in there so you'd actually have the curve, because the military uses those round attitude indicators they call the 8 balls. And then I dropped all the future floor wax in there to give a nice level glass cover over it and everything, and did the cockpit. And I was putting the photo etch rudder pedals over the existing stubs, and I was like, even with the canopy open, no one can see this. And then the pilot figure wouldn't fit in. It doesn't come with a pilot figure, but I was like, there's no way I could put a pilot figure. The only way I'm getting a pilot figure in here is if I sand him down. I'm like, well, what's wrong? Is the pilot figure the wrong size, or is the ejection seat too small, or the cockpit? And what you realize is that we as humans were a little on the pliable side. So when you strap all that gear and get into the seat, you just squeeze in. But of course, a fixed styrene character, unless he's made tucked in like that, he can't, so you're sand, scrape, sand, scrape. And you're like, why sell me a pilot figure in a sitting position that isn't going to fit in the ejection seat? But there you have it, which is why it's nice when the kit comes with the pilot figure. Actually did not have that problem with the Kafir. Send another photo. Tom Gregat does some amazing... Is Gregat, he's not the one that does the stop motion stuff, because that guy is my kind of insane. I can barely build a model, never mind building one in stop motion. No, that was the kit, that Knox class was, I guess the model was a foot long, so I guess it was about a 1 to 350. 1 to 300, something like that. It was about, actually more than a foot long, about 1450. And it was white ensign models. And for a serious model builder, especially a ship builder, it wasn't a tough build. But I hadn't dealt with that much resin because it's a resin kit, and it's actually my first resin kit. I actually did a series of build videos on it. Gosh, what was it, 10 years ago? And they're probably still out on YouTube somewhere. And I'm not going to look at it now because I'm broadcasting, but you could probably go see them. And that I did make sure to wash everything before I did it. Resin, I know plastic, you need to do the mold release agent. You absolutely have to do it with a resin kit. And it's virtually guaranteed you're going to have something with it. You can almost see it that did that with the that I got from Fantastic Plastic, that tremulous. Oh, it's shutting down. But anywho, so that brings up the issue of painting a resin model. Now, I put a primer coat on it, but I tried using just conventional, like Krylon for the gray base. And when I taped everything off and pulled the tape off, about 30% of the paint came with it. So that brings up the rather touchy issue of what to paint a resin kit with. And I'm thinking that enamels are the only thing that are going to survive any kind of masking. And then you've got to give them probably a couple of days to harden so they can really bite in. And as you guys know, enamel paints bite into the plastic. I mean, they have a chemical reaction with it. And that's why they're so hard to get off, but why they stay on so well. Whereas acrylics, you can just scratch them off. And one of my biggest fears anytime I'm using tape is if I'm putting it over paint is this going to come up with was the paint going to come up with the tape? Some folks are really mastered using like Play-Doh. They'll melt the Play-Doh and they'll slice it off and then peel it back and everything and then shoot it, and then just the Play-Doh comes off, the paint stays. But that's one of those things that I have used it to make camouflage, to make the feather pattern. Works fairly well. My spray gun keeps acting up, and I've gone through 2 spray guns, and they're decent spray guns, and I try to keep them clean and everything, but I realize part of the problem is I use a lot of crappy old paints that I got for cheap, and you pay for that. I know people say you can reconstitute a paint and everything, you can put more thinner in it, whatever, and that's my brother calling. I wonder if he's watching. Let me see real quick. You're live on the interweb. I'm doing a live stream. Are you watching, or did you just happen to call?
Oh, no, I'm watching.
Oh, okay.
This is what prompted me to call.
Okay. Folks, this is my brother, the lawyer. I was just talking about the Knox that I made for, you know who.
TK.
Yeah. I keep on calling him TJ.
PK, yeah. No, we know. You're constantly monitored. He loved the build, by the way. The only problem was when I presented it to him, I made the slightest inflection of a wrist or something, and I knocked off a couple of the superstructure struts and had to glue them back on.
I hope you use super glue, because that's about the only thing that'll hold that stuff.
Yeah, but it was greatly appreciated, and I'm sure is still adorning his residence.
Mm.
No, we were just watching, and I was thinking you could save me a whole lot of money if you'd be willing to make a special sibling build for me.
Well, what do you want?
It's either you build it or I buy it. It's a Lincoln Mark V Bill Blast Edition.
Well, have you got the kit?
Hell no. I don't know if they made one.
Does anybody know if they made a Lincoln Mark V Bill Blast Edition?
Or a Lincoln Mark V, you can modify it.
Hold on. Okay. I saw I wasn't moving. I thought my feet had locked up. I think it has.
Our mutual friend and expert model builder Norman's father had a Mark V Bill Blast. Remember that? The blue bottom with the tan top?
You mean the USS Ticonderoga class American road battle wagon?
That is correct. USS Mark V. 7.5 liter V8.
And that was just get it out of the garage.
Developing, I believe, 190 horsepower given the emissions requirements of the day.
7.5 liter. I think that's roughly the size of the engine they stuck in a Tiger 1.
Yeah, I think it's a 460 cubic inch.
Jeez.
It was a beast. I asked Norm what had happened to it, and they sold it. He sold it many years ago, but it was a '77, I think, and he went with his dad when he bought it new from the dealership. You know.
I remember the Bill Blass edition and all those others. And I got the designers.
Yeah, the Emilio Pucci, the Givenchy, and the Cartier.
God, that was the malaise period for American cars. They look cool, I'll give them that.
Oh, I know.
You couldn't pull into a driveway without scraping bumpers.
No. Ironically, while I was driving home today, I got behind, and I'm kidding not, about a 1980 Fairly Cherry Lincoln Town Car.
Das Lincoln Panzer, yeah.
Yeah, hard to pass since it takes up 2 lanes.
What I love is you see these things, because I'm down in Lauderdale a lot,
Yeah.
and there's like no one's driving that thing, and you go around them, and you see the top of some little old lady's head, and you're like, you realize why was it Lincoln had the little crosshair for a hood ornament?
Yes.
And you realize that's not a hood ornament; it's a gun sight. She's zeroing in on the local motorcyclist.
That is correct. And you pretty much had about what they call the long hood, short deck arrangement. You know, which the deck is what's over the trunk.
Only the hood was the only part that could handle tandem rotor helicopters. Only the trunk could only handle the landing of single rotor helicopters.
Yeah, they rented it out to Whiting Naval Base for helicopter practice.
Jeez, I tell you what,
ramming speed. You know, I mean, you realize, my gosh, it's true. I mean, it was some of the, you got to watch on YouTube some of the videos of the old commercials and some of the more modern videos on it, because the car was 19 feet long. It was 9 inches longer than a modern day Lincoln Navigator SUV.
Yeah, I think somebody found the car in 1/18 scale, but you ain't gonna like how much it cost.
Oh man, I mean, what stunned me was the car came in 1979 with a computer that told you how much mileage you had to empty.
Yeah,
and it had an 8-track stereophonic 8-track.
Stereophonic 8-track.
Quadraphonic. My wife says it's quadraphonic 8-track.
Oh, quadra! You had 4. It was sort of like the old. Who remembers surround sound? First movie I saw in surround sound was Midway, and I was like, I'm not sure I'm enjoying this. Oh, look! Yeah, we're going to a quiet scene where they're just bombing the carrier.
Yeah, I think I was there because I remember seeing the giant speakers in the corners.
Yeah, we were. We looked at them like, man, those would look good down in the room, you know.
Remember, when I call in, this is the voice of world control. My wife asked me, she goes, can we get the Forbin Project on YouTube? But anyway.
Land barge, 8-tracks.
Yeah, we're enjoying your videos. We love them. You're doing a great job.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to it.
I was hoping TD might call in, but I don't know if he's watching or not.
TK.
No. TD, Tom Daniel. You guys sent me this shirt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Too many T's. All right. But, but really good job. Keep it up.
Well, give Janice my best, and if you see TK, tell him I said hi.
Yeah, I will. Take care.
Bye.
Best to all your viewers.
Oh, he's wishing you guys all the best. Thanks. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, caller, you're alive. Yeah, so that's okay. Did any of you guys ever watch any of the movies in Sense Around? And if so, it came out in around 77, I think. And if so, what movie did you watch? And what was? I think that was all the notes I had. But one of the things that I found that was kind of interesting today while I was tinkering on the on some of the models was that I realized, you know, building models is great, but when you see the actual thing in person, and I was thinking about how many things I built models of, like boats, PT boats and stuff, and when you go out and see the thing in person, you start to realize how important all those little things you don't want to paint or put on are, davits and things like that, and you also realize how big they are. They're tiny on a model, but on the actual boat or plane or whatever, they're actually pretty big. like when you're trying to get the missiles or whatever to stay on, or the drop tanks to stay on an airplane, you go out and see one in a museum, you see how big those clamps and latches actually are, and you're like, man, you know, when you go back to build a model, it kind of reinforces how important it is to get some of these details on there if you're trying to make an accurate model. When I was in the museum, the Yorktown Museum in Charleston, South Carolina, and by the way, that's Yorktown CV-10 Essex class, not the one that was lost at Midway. So they also had that Vietnam thing laid out there. They got the M42 Duster, and they have a CH-46, which is the military version of this helicopter. And I had ridden around in Chinooks when I was in the Army, which is the bigger version that has four wheels. And that was actually the first time I've been up close and personal with the CH-46, and I was like, wow, you know, this thing is not nearly as big. It's a much smaller helicopter. And I'm looking at all the accoutrements on it and everything, and when I was building that helicopter, I was just thinking it's absolutely impossible to make some of those components to scale. I mean, you might be able to mold them into the plastic, but when you look at them, they're fairly big, but like there's just no way you can do something that small unless you can shrink yourself down to about that big. Just a limitation on model building. But then when you do put all that hyper detail on there, aside from the fact that almost nobody notices, you're running the issue it's usually very fragile. Just like those rotor masts are made to scale, but I managed to break one of the rotors off the hub with very little pressure just because that piece is so physically small. And that brings in the question of structural stability versus, accuracy. Just like it's hard to build some of the big, large-scale model bombers without the wings sagging. I was emailed somebody earlier today, or answered an email today. Somebody was building the Hawk U2, and as the fates would have it, I found an old Hawk U2 kit that someone left behind at my mom's house years ago, and it's not a lot. It's not a complicated kit. And I glued it together, but it was hard. It was impossible to keep the wings straight. They were a little warped, and as much as you try to straighten them out and everything, but then once you build the model, there's just going to be some sag. The Felix though, all that rigging on the Felixstowe actually does bear some weight, because the Felixstowe wings, they're just by how heavy the styrene is, they're gonna sag, which is why they give you those little sawhorses to put up under the wingtip floats, because otherwise the wings are gonna sag, and unless you can find some other, I don't think anybody's going to get into the trouble of drilling a carbon fiber rod, but that's about what it would take to hold them straight. And, a limitation on the hobby. The only way I can think you could make that those wings would not sag would be to make them extremely thin two-piece, where they're just vacuform thin. And I don't think anybody's going to do that. Oh, by the way, somebody asked about the Border Models 1/32 scale Lancaster. And if I'm not mistaken, that is, and there's some unboxing videos, that is the Border got some of Wingnut Wings molds, and that was what was supposed to be the Wingnut Wings Lancaster. 1/32 scale Lancaster. I mean, seriously, where are you going to put that? Unless it lives on the dining room table. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a fantastic idea and kit. That's the kind of thing that takes 6 months to build, and just because of the massive size and everything. But the okay, this brings up it just somehow. So I was just reading the comments. Someone's got the Fujimi CH-46. I've seen some beautifully made helicopters, and to me, the trickiest part of building a helicopter, and there are a lot of pitfalls in building helicopters because they have so many tiny parts that, like the rotor mounts and everything, that are so critical. But also, generally speaking, helicopters have a lot of glass on them, and especially in the cockpit. And masking that off and getting the fine edge and everything that I've seen guys do, it's really impressive. Every time I try that, something goes south. Which was kind of interesting. The Faller, you didn't have to do it because that mast area on the front, the framed area, is its own separate piece that goes over the clear plastic. That made life a lot easier. But masking windows and canopies seems to be one of the banes a lot of people have issues with, myself included. And I've had a few of them come out really well, especially if they have a proper mask from one of the companies that makes the masks. But it seems like every time I try to use Tamiya tape and trim it out, no matter how sharp a knife I use, it's just always some issues getting it done. I know some people only mask the edges and then use the liquid mask to cover the rest of it. I've had mixed results with that. It's like I put the stuff on and you're like, did that cover that or did it roll out of place? I put a little more on, you wind up with a little buildup, so you're like, okay, that is definitely covered. And then when it's time to peel it off, you get pieces of it that don't want to come off, and you're like, trying not to scratch the clear plastic to get it off. So, yeah. 1/32 scale B-36. You might as well just put real engines on that thing and fly it to work. Oh yeah, I'm sure the Focke-Wulf 189 is a nightmare to mask. One of the everything has its disadvantages. The airplanes with a lot of glass on them, like the Heinkel 111 and the Focke-Wulf 189. Those things there's just so much there. B-36 and B-29 that is just a nightmare to mask those things. And you go, well, at least the World War I airplanes don't have any masks. Yeah, no, they've got rigging, which is worse. And that's one nice thing about cars. Cars are fairly straightforward in that regard, but they have their own little bugaboos. Oh, by the way, speaking of model cars, you guys may recall I did the 64 Dodge Polara, and I kind of made it like my grandma's, but hers was a four-door. So my sister found some photographs of that car, and it's a champagne color, so they called it. But I didn't realize, started doing all my trim packages, and it turns out that the 64 Polara that I had, that my grandmother had, which eventually I inherited, had the I think it was the 880 trim package. So it had the model has just a basic trim that's just a piece of silver trim that goes on the side and makes a U in the front and comes back towards the front wheel a little bit. But there was another one, which I believe was the 880 package, where it has two more pieces of trim inside, so it makes like a trident. But also the main piece has a white center. Oh, God, that'd be fun to detail. So not only would I have to convert it from a two-door to a four-door and find the correct wheels for it, and more taillights because it had 3 taillights, whereas that kit model only has 2 because it's the baseline model, then you would have to figure out a way to paint that trim and get that little white piece in there. And I see guys that do it, and I don't know if they're using decal stripe or if they're taping it and painting or if they're scratching it off with the knife or what, but like, whew, these things, you can wind up going down the rabbit hole real quick. But when you're done, you're like, all right, on the shelf she goes, and to bask in glory forever. And then it's off to the next kit. So, the monogram Blue Thunder helicopter, yeah. The movie wasn't so bad, but the television show, oh my God, just all kinds of horrible. Man, I know people love to make Hollywood cars and they're fun. We just watched the Fast and Furious 9, which was, the physics need not apply. And I was looking at some of the cars they were driving in it, and I was like, I realize these movies, they're just popcorn movies. Don't take it, don't get, like, a car can't do that. We know it can't do that. You cannot downshift while falling through and you cannot put a Fiero in space. That being said, though, I was thinking, but if you got a model Pontiac Fiero and a couple of rocket engines, that would make a cool little subject to build. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be cool. And if you haven't seen the Fast and Furious 9 and you're wondering what I'm talking about, a Pontiac Fiero in space, I'm not joking. Yes. And I'll leave it at that, and you can go watch the movie. And we just got done watching Discovery, the Star Trek season, was the latest season, and I don't know if any of you guys have watched it, but the new Star Trek shuttles, because it's supposed to be 900 years beyond Kirk or whatever, and the shuttlecraft, I'm like, even if they made a model of that, I don't think I would buy it. It is the most boring looking vehicle I've ever seen. It's basically a flattened egg. I wasn't particularly thrilled with the design of Discovery, but I get they were trying to do something different. But the shuttlecraft just, it looks like a Tic Tac. If guys, when you make a TV show or a movie, you got to be thinking, merchandising afterwards, and models are part of that, and toys and stuff. And people like stuff that looks cool. I know aerodynamics don't matter, so you can make it any shape you want. So, make it look cool. Don't make it look like a Tic Tac. Well, that's my 2 cents. Nobody's making it. I haven't even seen a kit of Discovery. I've seen kits of just about a lot of stuff coming out of The Mandalorian. Star Wars are starting to make more stuff, but the new Star Trek doesn't seem to be getting much traction. The old Star Trek seems to be where everybody's putting their money. There's still, people are putting out new versions of the original Enterprise, and some of them are pretty awesome. I built several of those things myself, and my brother had the very first generation one that came out. I mean, he had it back in the 60s. I remember seeing it. It had the little tabs on the engine pylons, and they sagged horribly. And that kept me from buying one for a long time. Well, I wound up getting like a 4th generation one. So by the time I did, they had the big tabs on them where everything, it fit very snug. And that was a big improvement. And I built another one again. And I know a lot of people putting the lighting kits in them, which adds more weight to the front of the nacelle, which helps them to sit straight. But there are still some cars and trucks out there that haven't been made. I'm kind of surprised. I don't know if anybody make the Mark 7 or not, but I know a lot of people have asked about various kinds of trucks and stuff, and International seems to be, for such a common brand, it seems to be fairly poorly represented in the kit model trucks. Work flew an egg. That's true. AMT has a disgrace-free Enterprise much. Oh, heavy metal Corvette scene. Yeah, they kind of beat Elon to that one. Only it was coming back. Did you guys know? There's probably, and I think somebody's already put out a Strange New World version of the Enterprise, and you'll probably see more of them. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the original Enterprise, the very original Matt Jeffries design, was just the saucer section. And they were like, nah, that's not cool enough. It's kind of like a UFO. There's somebody out there who put an animation of some of the original concept vehicles. He had the original Enterprise, which is basically a saucer section with a bigger bridge area and everything before they put the secondary hull and the nacelles on it. And they had the Interceptor from UFO. The Interceptor from UFO, it had the big missile in the nose, but it was more pointed, and it looked kind of like a Gemini capsule before they changed the shape and everything. It's kind of cool to see these early concepts. And, of course, Jeffries also designed the Klingon battlecruiser. And he designed the shuttle, but the shuttle was the thing he designed with the wings and everything, and the engine's way out on the curved pylons and the big teardrop shape. And they're like, man, that's too expensive. So they wound up with the Winnebago shape, which is still pretty cool. Actually, when you say shuttlecraft, that looks like a shuttlecraft. No. The t-shirt wars. No. And, but the egg. Yeah, bad. Totally forgot about Mork and Mindy. They had a lot of cool sitcoms that, oh, I thought I had the picture here. By the way, there is a picture here. Let me go and grab this image. Let's see. There it is. The late great Andy Anchus was one of the people who built this car for that's the Black Beauty model. Hold on, let me shrink this down. You know what? Transform, fit to screen. There we go. I'm sure you guys all recognize Black Beauty there. So, this and the other one, the they were using the rotation scene, the white one, the convertible, you know, they disappeared. And just to rehash something I know you guys already know because I told you, was that Andy had built that out of wood along with another guy, both cars. And this screen grab is from a recent episode of Pierce Films' A Sense of Scale. And these are the cars that, to this day, no one knows where they are. And I didn't realize that even that scene was shot on a miniatures set. But I'm wondering, you know, if who ended up with those things, because they'd be worth a small fortune, I'm sure. But all that's handmade and 1/10 scale. And Andy would have loved to have seen that. And who was it? Let me tell you real quick who it was. I think that get that up. Oh, I can hear the cat meowing in the other room. Andy Green Hornet car. So, Sense of Scale might have had something to do with Andy Green. But anyway, I saw that and had to grab it and talk about it, because there it is actually on set, you know, getting camera ready and everything. And it's pity Andy's not around. He would love to have seen that episode. And he probably could have contacted the guys that, you know, whatever happened to the cars? You know, we never got them back because they were leased by Aurora. They were not allowed to be sold because Andy and the guy were not in the modelers union. So they could only be leased. So, and in other stuff, this photo was sent to me recently. Okay, fit to screen. There's some scale difference there. This will probably be in the viewer's build, but I was I didn't realize they made them that big. If I remember correctly, I want to say that's 124, 112, and 1.8 or something like that. I forget. But I just saw that. I just thought, I'm sure somebody could shed a little light on that. But that had to be an expensive kit to get a Jaguar that big. I mean, where do you put a model that big? Oh, well. Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you real quick. Okay. So, you guys, what's going on? 1.6, it might be. 1.6 or 1.8. It's huge. And he actually told me in the email, and I forgot. But I do, as I recall, it was a single digit. All right. Hey, Paul. No worries. I was talking about you earlier, guys. Paul just joined us. He's the gentleman in New Zealand without whom I would not have any information for the Panda New Zealand build, or history video. I got about 6 history videos I'm still collecting data on, but I should try and put one of those up. Tomorrow I might go ahead and, I think I've got enough pictures to do a regular viewer's build. And now that we're getting near the deadline, I'm getting a lot of ships coming in, and which I have been collecting various forms of music for. I've already gotten started on the watercraft video because it's going to be a long one. A lot of, oh gosh, we're well past 200 images. In fact, I was just downloading some before we started tonight's video or live stream. So, of course, I say where do you put something like that, and I've got that gigantic Caterham. Thank God the Caterham's a small car. But oh, here's a thought. Bigger the kit, the better the kit. Agree or don't agree? Seems like Testers made some really large scale stuff. I had their big F-22, and I have their big F-117 that I haven't gotten around to yet. And they're not bad kits. They're just not particularly detailed. But then again, with the F-22, it didn't come with a pilot. Cockpit was fairly basic, but it was, gosh, only a couple of dozen parts, I think. But it looked great hanging from the ceiling, so I guess you don't necessarily have to have a lot of parts. Well, that's a pretty clean design, too. But I've seen some of these guys doing the Hawker 124 scale Airfix Hawker build, Hurricane build, and they actually had quite a few complaints with the fit and everything. So, whereas the Felix, though, is the exact opposite. Of course, Wings bends over backwards to make everything fit like a glove. They're probably the only company I've built that's better than Tamiya. Tamiya. So, is bigger better? And I don't think there's necessarily a correlation between the two. I have had some big kits that things didn't fit that well, and that was a disappointment because, smaller scale, you can hide a few things or sand them down and no one notices, but the bigger the model gets, the easier the blemishes show. I had a 124 scale Huey one time and a 132nd scale, and the 132nd scale, I think it was the Aurora kit, and it was just shaped wrong. I mean, you just looked at it, it was too teardroppy. God, we're going back a ways on that one. And the big 112 one was actually, and I forget who made that, or I said 112, 124, was actually, it was a B model or C model, and it actually was shaped right. At least it looked like it was. So it might have been a Revell. Gosh, the years go by. I can't even remember all of them that I built. Death Star was 4. Yeah. Hey, Apostolos. Yeah, I agree. Big allows you to do detail, but not necessarily better. There's some people out there that will take the Guilos kits, and I've seen one guy did the, I think he did the Sterling AT6, or maybe it was the Guilos AT6, but he puts, instead of using tissue, he uses a sort of a thick paper, and it gives it he paints it or prints it, and so when he puts it together, it gives it a very heavy metal look, and he actually details out the interiors, and they look great. They're not quite to the scale of a styrene kit, but really close. And of course, you get it on a big scale. And outside of model builders, most folks really aren't that concerned about it. The average person sees a built model. They're not. You got to be like one of us to hunt all the details. Okay, this is the danger of having a lunch with a model builder and somebody who's owned a World War II Jeep. I had the Jeep when I got married and a motorcycle, and after a while I realized I had family responsibilities, so those toys went. Well, anyway, today we're having lunch at a good little restaurant here in Jacksonville, Salentos, and my wife tells me, goes, there's a World War II Jeep parked out front, and you should go take some pictures. Like, oh, okay. So I go outside, and as soon as I walked out the door, I realized it's not a World War II Jeep. It was backed in. It had tailgate, which means it was a M38 or a CJ2, post-war model. And I think they actually got that thing out of the production line just before the war ended, or maybe just after. But I did the walk around. They'd made it look like a World War II Jeep with the paint job and everything, but it was clearly a post-war Jeep. And I came back in and said, it's not World War II. And I thought, well, you see, it's got the gas tank on the side and the spare tire on the other side, and it's got the tailgate. So that's a post-war Jeep, and it's got the gas cap sticking out the side, not under the seat. And it's got the 7-slat grill with the bug-eye headlights instead of the 9-slat, and they're just kind of looking like. And it didn't have any bumperettes, and it had a 4-speed transmission, the T90, not the T85, and I'm looking at them, they're just like, yeah, but it's pretty just as I was like, yeah, that's the danger of having lunch with a model builder. And, yeah. The Royal Order of Rivet Counters, And, okay, how many of you got a model of something? You asked very specifically, you asked your parents or your wife or your girlfriend, get me a da-da-da-da-da-da, and I want I want an AMT, 69, Camaro, da-da-da, and, they get you something completely unrelated. And Camaro, Mustang, AMC, MPC, AMT, same thing, right? Yes, dear. Um, 148 SR71, $154. Oh my God. I'm sure the spike of petroleum prices has had something to do with that. If the 73 and 79 oil crunches could impact modeling as hard as they did, I'm sure the nonsense that's going on now can definitely jack up the price of models. But, well, I guess I shouldn't act shocked. 10 years ago, the Trumpeter 132nd scale SBD was over $100. Yeah, happened all the time. Yeah, well, you can't blame them. They're doing the best they can. It's a thought that counts. But I'm not putting this, post-war Jeep on my World War II diorama. It does. It's like asking for a specific computer part or something. I'm sure that happens in every endeavor, video gaming and everything else. But, batteries. I just wanted to see if that was still working. It looks like the battery's dying. But, okay. Now I got this thing clicking behind my head. I was just looking at it on the screen and, oh, I can just make the propellers turn on that. And, oh, yeah, that battery's just about dead. The propeller quit on its own. If I don't knock the whole thing over. So, guys, I'm out of stuff. What do you want to talk about? Oh, by the way, we got 2 Rickies, and I want to give a shout out to both of them. One for the information on the Gundam, and one for that awesome picture he sent me of that magnificent jet that he's building on, which you are going to have to watch the viewers build to see. And let's see. Also, Garfield, and you're watching, if I didn't catch it earlier, I wanted to thank you. That's the Rommel's rod that you gave me, and the one in the box is the one TD sent me that I'm hanging on to. But normally, I decided to set this up. I thought this was a better backdrop than what I used to have. Also, I don't have to worry about like the partition falling over. I'll probably try to come up with something a little more permanent. This is the mug that I got off of Mike Machat's website. So, guys, I got the Bonanza because, whoops, I'm knocking over the turbos. I got this one because if I didn't tell you, Bonanza is the very first airplane I ever got to ride in. It was Barry Ottinger's V-35B back around 1964. And this is, I believe, a later version of the Bonanza. But, so I'm going to try and come up with sort of a semi-permanent little background here and do this way. Ugh. But this is actually kind of the stuff I keep on my desk, and of course the big stuff up there. But so I'm just going to take a second. Have you seen The Wandering Earth? After I got that model of the Wandering Earth truck, which is, I almost thought Ken was going to build that. When Ken was here last time, I was about to rope him in to build another model. I'm trying to lure him into model building. He does model railroads, and he did the Beaumark, but he hasn't really built plastic kits since he was a kid. And he was really intrigued by that Wandering Earth truck, and so I went on YouTube and watched some of it, the trailers and everything. Interesting movie concept. And I do have that big truck that was sent to me, but I haven't gotten started on it. I don't know when I'll get to it. But since you brought that up, let me loop back to something. Oh, good. John's here. Hey, John. I like the F-15 mug. Yeah. Well, Mike's got a lot of beautiful stuff there because, he's an artist. He's going to have great stuff. I'm really having a problem with bringing myself just hacking up a good model. Even though if you're going to kit bash, you got to be willing to chop a brand new model. What is my what is it about me that won't let me do that? But I really think the idea of using the wheels off the trailer and extending the front end of the Bugatti and building the rear end or I think that might work out a lot better. And then I still have the trailer, which I can just make, lost out in the woods with, I can still do the diorama the way I want to without a total sacrifice there. It's just something that's hard for me to just go, well, here's a perfectly good, kit model parts. And I mean, of course, you can always put them in the spare parts bin, but, but, oh, by the way, I just have trouble chopping on a perfectly good model. Kiticide, styrenicide, plasticide. It's got to be a crime. Anyway, one thing I'm thinking about at some point. Well, we're going to do a kit bash at some point. But one other thought. Okay, start over. One other thing I thought of is at some point is telling everybody is let's do a build just out of crap you have in your spares bin. Doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Take a couple of missiles that are left over and a couple of wheels and make a missile launcher. But at some point I was thinking we should just have a total spare parts bin build. Not an actual kit bash like cut up kits and do it, but just whatever. And I realize some folks don't have a stash of leftover parts. But I was just thinking I guarantee you guys with your creative nature and everything, you could come up with some pretty cool stuff. And, anybody catch? 1 to 144 scale B36 is a 148 scale B25. If you haven't been to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, and you ever get a chance to go. And they have the B-36 indoors. And they have the bomb bay open, so you see the little tube that runs across both bomb bays with a little pressurized tube that the crew would use to get front and back. You see Jimmy Stewart crawling through it in the with a little dolly. You see Jimmy Stewart in it in the Strategic Air Command. Anyway, the airplane needs to be experienced. You can't get back and see the whole thing in one view. It's massive. And the thing is, when you look up, like in the nose section in the bombardier's compartment, it's not particularly spacious inside. As big as it is, it has it's packed full of equipment. It's a pressurized. And that fuselage, as long as it is, it's still not that big around as a tube. And the cockpit's not, I'd love to get up in the cockpit of one of those, just sit down and just see what it was like. But it's amazing. How can it be so big on the outside and so small on the inside? So to build a battleship. Yeah, a few of us have got. I think I'd be making some kind of overarmed missile launcher, and put enough wheels and styrene and everything together and find weapons. I always go towards the fantasy military build, because the way I would do it is, what could I make out of this that you'd want to fight Godzilla with? And at some point we were going to talk about Godzilla. This is kind of not a model thing, except I almost did this, but I just didn't have time and everything. But somebody sent me a book, or the link to a book. I think it was called the Kaiju Preservation Society, and it was. I just ran out of time. I had meant to get it set up so we could talk about it. Anyway, and it's just a novel. It's basically somebody learns that there's an alternate dimension and kaiju exist in it, and these people are trying to preserve them. Anyway, it got me thinking about. My wife just made a comment and it was kind of along the lines of a thought I'd had in the past. What if we found out that Godzilla and these other creatures existed in another dimension, and we went there to go see them, but it turned out that we were the giants, that compared to us, they were only like 18 inches tall. And anyway, I had thought about it. At some point I thought about, what if you made a movie where you had like little baby kaiju that were walking around that were like 12 inches tall and everything, and you just treat them like household pets. And I thought about shooting a little video with the guy, with somebody in bed, just open their eye and look up, and you just see you're staring up against Godzilla, dun dun dun. But then the camera, then they shoot another angle where you realize the guy's just sitting with his head on the pillow, and it's like a pet. When your pet wakes you up in the morning, it's just standing over him looking down. He's like, it's a good little kaiju. Anyway, and I thought, you know what? You could make a comedy series out of that, or a comedy movie. And I said it's something like the Kaiju Country Club or Kaiju Country or something like that. But of course, it would all go horribly wrong somehow. But I was just thinking that would be just a funny twist on the thing. And the thing is, you could sell the models life size. Anyway, that's how my brain works. Let's see what we got here. I'd have gotten stuck in that tube also. Yeah, I went to military school, had an F-84F that was up on a stick, and they actually had to add another pole to it to keep the balance the tail. And I was like, that just looks so wrong. You get this majestic marble statue with the jet up on it, and in the back there's this pole sticking up. But, if you've ever sat in a cockpit of those things, they're really tight. If you've ever been in a fighter cockpit, I mean, it goes on about as tight as the flight suit. Not at the beginning of Men in Black 2. Yeah, they are. And, by the way, speaking of 1-to-1 scale models, you guys may or may not know that the only TBD-1 Devastators that are known to exist in the world are all underwater. One's off the coast of Miami. I think there's a couple out in the Pacific. The Navy just got rid of them. As soon as after Midway, they beached them. They used them as trainers for a while. They basically wore out, and then they just probably ground them up. Anyway, when they made the movie Midway, they made a full-size model of one, and pretty good one too, the looks of it. And it was donated, I believe, to the Naval Museum in Pensacola. So even though it's not a real Devastator, at least people can see what it looked like in real size. 1-to-1 model building. And people forget there's some 2-to-1 and 3-to-1s, like the Amoeba and these other things are actually overscale, and it's not that many, but it's something to think about when you think about scaling. They didn't get the number backwards. Of course, that Amoeba would have to be like, 1,000-to-1. But I think it was the human eye and the human ear were like 2-to-1 or 4-to-1, something like that. Chanute, my dad went to Chanute. That's where he did his maintenance training. Octave Chanute. One of the great pioneers of aviation. So, what else we got, guys? That's the ultimate dimension right now. And you could have them come back to our dimension, but the problem is when they come to our dimension, the dimension changes sizes, so maybe when they come back they start growing or something. And be nice. All right. I always think I have too much material to cover, and then I get started on it, and next thing you know, I've run out of things. Yeah, that was all the pictures that I had. Has anybody built any sci-fi lately, or any interesting cars? I've been working mostly on aircraft and everything. Oh, Space Coast IPM, March 29 to May 1. Let's see what I'm doing. That's not far from where I work. Let me see. Check my schedule here. That is, Trey says Space Coast is March 29 to May 1. I might be able... That's several days. I might be able to get down there. Oh, wait a minute. I'm reading that wrong. Hold on, where is that? Wait, I think you mean April to May, or unless it's a month long. Trey, you got March 29 to May 1. That's like 32 days. Anyway, I have to keep an eye out for that. You know, I had never gone to an IPS show or anything before, and now that I've been to two of them, I really enjoy it. You find all kinds of cool stuff for sale, and the work is embarrassingly good. One of the things I found was the guy who he painted the entire model on the sprue and just displayed it that way. I thought, I've got to do that with a kid at some point. That was just too cool. May. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for it. I might be able to make that. Got a 1950 war movie with a couple of Martian ships, but I haven't started it yet. Oh, that'd be awesome. I'll be honest. I told you guys there are two movies and one TV show that just terrified me as a kid. I was never terrified of like the vampire movies or anything. So, yeah, you know, put a stake in one of them. But the original War of the Worlds, the original Godzilla, because I was young when I saw them, and of course the same for the opening scene of the Invaders. And those things literally gave me nightmares, but they were, which is really the mark of good sci-fi. I saw that movie that was made just a few years ago, which was a spoof on the old B movies called Alien Trespass. If you love the old movies, you're going to love Alien Trespass. And somebody made a comment that it's a movie disguised as a B movie. And it really was a lot of fun. And it was, I think, a good homage to the old sci-fi. And the old sci-fi, a lot of people talk about how, you know, it was capitalizing on Cold War tensions, and maybe it was. But that stuff, there was some of it was just horrible. And I've seen some of the Japanese stuff that was just abysmal. But somebody gave me a CD full of old movies, and it was this was before I started this channel, and I tried to sit through some of them. And I mean, the Japanese in these starfish or star costumes, I was like, shoot, your set designer should just commit seppuku. But then they turn around and make something like the 54 Godzilla or a few of the other movies they made. And I can let rough special effects go because of limitations of the time, but some of the like set design, costume design and stuff was just beyond hokey. But then I watch a classic like the Green Slime, and I'm like, my God, this thing is a train wreck that I cannot stop watching. I absolutely love it. And that jazzy dun, 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 Green Slime, I'm like, and then there's somebody, well, you know, it was Italian. I was like, oh, that just explained a lot. And you're like, I don't know whether to love this movie or hate it. You know, and in the end I said, you know what, I'm just going to love it. And this is where, you know, out of work American actors go. They got to eat like everybody else. So it was just, it really runs the gamut from extremely good to extremely bad. What is sad, though, is when you see a really good idea so poorly handled. I don't mind, or what in ways kind of worse is when you see good special effects and props work and everything on a really bad movie. I'm like, you know, what a shame. You know, apparently they had the budget for good special effects, but didn't know how to use them. But of course, a lot of the stock footage movies, what they call them, that's what they call them, stock. What did I see? I saw Kronos recently, and I was thinking, you know, when you look at the premise of some of these films, somebody actually submitted a model of Kronos, and I don't think a model's made, so I guess they scratch built it. It's one of the recent viewers builds, and I was like, you know, and also the gorilla from what was it? You guys know the movie I'm talking about, where the robot's whole costume is a gorilla costume with a fish tank on its head, or not a fish tank, a diver's helmet. And I mean, a movie that was just so bad, not a redeeming quality to it. Yet you can't help but admire the audacity to make something that bad. And then you look at it and you go, you know what? You look at someone made a model of it and did such a wonderful job. You're kind of like, it makes me want to go watch the movie. You watch about 5 minutes of the movie. Okay, enough of that. The Blob. How do you make a model of the Blob? Well, you put some Jello in a bowl and freeze it. Robot Monster. Thank you. Could not remember that. Bad sci-fi. Well, maybe there's no such thing as really bad sci-fi, but I mean, as a kid, they would show that stuff on in the Sunday afternoons and stuff when there's nothing else on TV, and some of the movies were oh gosh, I can't remember the names of half of them. Tarantula I always liked for some reason, and Giant Mantis. Of course, all these movies are just hilarious when the MSTK guys get to it, and the one I saw them do This Island Earth, which I think's a movie that begs to be remade, and they gotta fly a Stenson, but is when the jets are taking off and they're giving like the pull shock signal or whatever. You go, hail Ming, but the jets are taking off formation. Oh, the new codependent Air Force. that one just stuck. Okay, real quick, write down your best or worst old B science fiction movie. Best, boy, that's a coin toss between the War of the Worlds and the original Godzilla. I'm going to give it to Godzilla. Not that I think it's necessarily better than War of the Worlds, but I don't think it had the budget and it was an original material, as War of the Worlds is taken from a book. And from those who don't know, and I'm sure most of you guys do, War of the Worlds, the novel, was Wells' depiction. It was his metaphor for European intrusion into more primitive countries, Afghanistan, Africa, and the like, colonialism, and that's really what it represented. Where European countries with rifles and machine guns and cannons would go into these more primitive countries and basically, well, you're now part of the British Empire, you're now part of the German Empire or the French Empire or whatever. He never liked it, so he wrote that as a way to sort of make us understand what it's like to be colonized. Of course, that gets lost on most people. They just Martians. Although the sound effects, the special effects, to me, the first half of the movie is the best part. Not that the rest of it isn't good, but the tension when you haven't seen them yet. That scene with the three guys, welcome to California, do 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 do. I'm like, man, I can't watch. I'm like, yeah, we saw that coming. The sound effects did such a perfect job of setting the tone. Those sound effects would work perfectly today. The Tom Cruise 2005 Tom Cruise War of the Worlds is a fine movie. I have no complaints with it. But well, of course, we already knew the storyline, and in some ways, it's closer to the book because the book largely takes place from the point of view of a person who's not really actively involved in fighting, just trying to survive. But the point I'm getting at is that I guess you could say it lacked a certain tension. Maybe I've got that wrong, but I found that the original, just because you didn't know what was going on for so long. I mean, there's the whole, it begins with the and then it's a meteor, and everybody just folks being folks, and let's go find Dr. Forrester and everything, and just all of that did a good job of the slow build, and the lid slowly unscrewing and everything. Although I did love the sound effects, the horns and everything of the and how tall and imposing they were. So the Spielberg version definitely had some of that. It's funny, it had that later in the movie when he had the long shots and everything. And of course, both of them, that creepy, horrifying scene with the probe comes in, and just great storytelling. And Mars Needs Women. Worst is Mars Needs Women. Touche. The Claw. Okay. I think Trey's has a winner. I actually sat through The Claw recently, and it was just horrible. That's Tarantula. Yeah, Tarantula. I don't know. I just always loved Tarantula. It actually, it had some real actors in it, which helped, but it was just the concept of a simple science experiment. And the doctor wasn't a villain. He was trying to do good for the world. It just got out of hand. Not like that nut job, the island of Dr. Moreau. And that's creepy. Yeah, the Claw was just horrible. Plan 9 is considered the worst movie ever made. But you're talking about a guy that was operating on a virtually non-existent budget. And one of those little Lindbergh flying saucers from the movie is still on a private collection today. I saw that a while back. Yeah, big screen doctor, maybe. Yeah, Plan 9 was so bad you almost can't count it. On the Boogaloos. Yeah, I used it on Star Trek also. And I was always like, ooh, turn that sound off. Ah, Giant Claw's the turkey of a film. Okay. Mummy's Curse 44. Them is another great one. I think one reason I like Tarantulas, I saw it real young. And Steve, don't answer this. Okay, real quick. Who knows who the lead fighter pilot was in Tarantula? Big name star these days. And with Strother Martin. That's the one about the doctor who was turning people into snakes. That was about the dumbest plot line I had ever heard of. But it was well acted. It was Strother Martin. Invaders from Mars. The Giant Gila Monster. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. We got to watch that one. Yeah, Them was great. As my brother used to say, that was the movie, was the days of good government, and giant ants are attacking LA, and by God, the government's got a response. And where in the most realistic government, the response is probably the Iron Giant. People want to know their government has a response, and I am that response. Kent Mansley. Work for the government. Clint Eastwood, very good, Ray. That is correct. Garfield got it too. Rob got it. Yes. Clint Eastwood is the lead fighter pilot. And, yeah, they probably had in the studio for all of 20 minutes to shoot his scenes. The monolith monsters. Yeah, I was like, are they really monsters? They're just like giant salt pillars that grow, crush, grow, crush, grow, crush. And Kronos was much more insidious. For some reason, Kronos and the monolith monsters always kind of remind me of each other. Zardoz. Yeah, man. The late Sean Connery was like, that's the movie I wish I had not made, but he needed the money. Ironically, people were like, why did he go making these big movies and making Zardoz? He goes, that was the problem, was that because his profile had gotten so high, no one was willing to pay what his agent thought he should make. And so the phone wasn't ringing, and that came to the final. Oh, man, watching him run around with that ponytail and his red pajamas. Good Lord. Oh, well. Gargoyle, yeah, I remember seeing that one. The 50-foot cheerleader. The Three Stooges. Oh, you guys are good. Yeah. They Live. I am here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I am all out of bubble gum. How hard could it be to outrun a rock? Yeah. Andromeda Strain, truly a great one. The Giant Locusts. Giant girls grew out of their clothes. Is that a feature or a bug? I'm going to pay for that one. But if you touch the monolith, you turn into one. Well, I think, unless you're Lot's wife, guys, pillar salt thing, Sodom and Gomorrah. I think pretty much the first time the person did that, everyone got the hint. Yeah. As Michael Caine said, you should see the house my salary bill. The Creeping Terror. I'm Gorgo, the British Godzilla. I remember seeing that at the theater. The only problem is it got off to a really slow start, and I never quite understood what was with the kid. I mean, they find this kid who's an orphan, and the two guys just take him with them. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that works how they think that works. The Killer Tomatoes. Horrors of the Black Museum was scared you. Is that the one where the guy is and the spikes come out of the binoculars? That scene horrified me. I saw that in the trailer. I'm not watching that movie. Oh yeah, Life Force. Well, if you got to be bitten by a vampire, make it a hot one. Reptilicus. Yeah, that was pretty bad. What was there was it Terror Island? Was that the name of it? That one. I saw that on TV when I was a kid. I was kind of like, man, I don't know what those big turtle-looking things are, but I ain't getting near one. You know, get me the hell out of here. Had to have, I suppose. Phantasm. That's kind of a weird one, but Alan. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Dr. Phibes was actually, I think that might have been was it an API film when Vincent was doing those, but it was actually for a horror movie, it was pretty decent. Phantasm is a great movie. Army of Darkness, heck yeah, baby. What was it said? What was that motto they had? Something in trouble, running low on gas or something. The thing I remember out of that was a mighty boomstick. I don't think I call heavy metal a horror. Well, it is sci-fi though. So yeah, okay, heavy metal. Yeah, I saw that at the theater. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun was either really good or really bad. I always thought it was really good, although it's odd, but I don't know. I guess I just love Jerry Anderson's work. Oh, When Worlds Collide, yeah, that was good. Yeah, Forbidden Planet. Of all the stuff, Forbidden Planet is the movie that begs to be remade. Can you imagine what they could do with modern special effects? And it was kind of, I saw a special about it, and they had LeVar Burton hosting it, and he said that the Forbidden Planet set the pattern for science fiction in the future with the command triumvirate, the doctor, the captain, and the first officer, which was later used on Star Trek and Voyager and so many others. Well, pretty much everything Trek, but kind of became a staple because it's a well-balanced way to for the theatrical and storytelling and a real world attributes that it has, that you'd have this command council, if you will, and from the special effects to the we kind of laugh at the costumes and stuff today, but you modernize it wouldn't need much work, and it was probably the first genuinely, call it intellectual science fiction. The closest thing today that by today's standards would be considered intellectual might be Interstellar, but maybe The Martian. But that was I think they knocked out of the park. The movie did quite well, and even though Leslie Nielsen's more famous for comedy, he he did a great job as a commander and everything. He was sort of the prototype for Kirk, and yeah, never mind. That's true. Don't make Ruben. You got a good point. The Rocky Horror Picture Show was deliberately bad, but the music was. I love the music. And the Rocky Horror Picture Show was kind of like bad by design, though. It was a parody of those old films with much better movies. Silent Running. Yeah, another movie where Bruce Dern plays a psychopath. I remember seeing that at the theater also. I think it was American Airlines. Well, they're still around. You guys are gonna hate me for saying it. I have never actually seen Dark Star. I've seen snippets of it. Oh, I saw Swamp Thing at the theater. Yep, Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah, I was still trying to figure out about, okay, am I supposed to take this movie seriously or is it camp? I remember watching it and going, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to take this movie seriously or not. It was Louis Jourdan turns into this weird fox-looking thing, and I was kind of like, looks like a horse. What the heck is that? Women of the Avocado Jungle of Death. Oh, the Langoliers. Yeah, that was old. What's his name? The Master of the Macabre. The writer that lives up in Stephen King. I think Stephen King came up with that. Trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas. That was it. I love that. Got me to watch the movie. Event Horizon is okay. Wow. I will try to watch Dark Star if I could find it. I've heard it's good but kind of terrible, and apparently the nuclear bombs look amazing, like model railroad cars. Yeah, the thing about Event Horizon is I was trying to wrap my head around exactly what was going on because it was one of those brain benders, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm never getting near the edge of a black hole. The Colossal Man, yeah. Yes, I agree, Bill. Anything with Jerry Anderson, I'll watch just for the models. Well, guys, it's almost time to wrap it up. The wife is pulling out her secret weapon. She's in there cooking, and she's like, I know how to get him to wrap up the live stream on time. Once the aroma drifts in here, I'm doomed, I say. Just reading the comments here. Gina, Queen of the Jungle. Ray Harryhausen. I'll watch anything with Ray Harryhausen stop motion or Jerry Anderson's model work. Jerry, Dark Stars to be watched while under the influence. I can handle that. No, where have all the good people? Not where have all. Don't think I saw that one. Do you remember The Last Man on Earth, Vincent Price? God, Sharknado. At least it has a good sense not to take itself seriously. No, she is not playing fair. I remember Ice Pirates. Yeah. If you're only 1 degree off. Peter Graves and them, yeah. Well, guys, I am going to let you run. And I'm going to shut everything. I'm going to leave this looping for a little while so you guys can chat amongst yourself for a bit. I want to thank everybody coming and enjoying spending some time with me. I hope you had a little fun and really enjoy the banter and the conversation. And one of these days, it was suggested that I might try to set up some sort of a big Zoom call. I just have the free version. I don't know what the limitations on it are, but at some point we might do something like that so everybody can jabber with one another. So I will let you guys run. As always, thanks for tuning in and model on. I just figure out which button I'm supposed to push.
It's just a small, inoffensive tube, not even as big as a tube of toothpaste or shaving cream. But as small as it is, this little tube is filled with big trouble. When used for their intended purpose, these so-called model cements are a great boon to the household and to model building young people. But they're a dangerous commodity when used improperly. The big trouble that lives in a tube of glue is unleashed when its vapor is inhaled. Now, why in the world would anyone deliberately sniff glue? For its intoxicating effect. The solvents that make the glue quick drying and convenient also can cause a person who inhales them to become drunk. It's about the same effect as drinking alcohol, but much more dangerous. Other substances people sniff include gasoline, paint thinner, lacquer, and other similar volatile liquids. The effect and dangers of inhaling these is the same as glue sniffing. Why is glue sniffing so bad? Because of what it does to those who engage in it. At first, it doesn't seem so bad at all. It produces a giddy feeling, making a person feel silly and excited. It may produce a good all-over feeling. But this feeling rapidly progresses to the dangerous level. It poisons, brings unconsciousness, and in some cases, death. When glue sniffing comes in, interest in other things goes out the window. People who sniff glue rapidly lose interest in other things. They drop out of athletics, usually fail in school, and become withdrawn from other people. Glue sniffing is habit forming, and a person soon becomes dependent upon it, even to the point of fighting with other glue sniffers over it. Their glue sniffing habit often links them with criminal activities. Worse yet, the glue sniffing habit can lead to more serious addictions with other products, such as narcotics. Glue sniffing is a dangerous practice. It causes impulsive and unpredictable behavior. The glue sniffer may develop feelings of reckless abandon and careless impulsiveness. His foolish behavior often endangers his own life and the lives of others as well. One teenager, after sniffing glue, stood on the railroad tracks ready to fight an oncoming train. He nearly lost his life. A 14-year-old attacked a woman, forced her out of her car, then smashed it into 3 other autos. Another teenager jumped off a low building because he was convinced he could fly. A 16-year-old glue sniffer picked a fight with 4 husky Marines after a glue sniffing session. He couldn't believe he had failed to win the fight. A 19-year-old stabbed to death his best friend after they had spent an evening sniffing glue. The glue sniffing habit is spreading rapidly. At one time, it was confined mostly to the larger cities and metropolitan areas. Recent reports indicate the problem is spreading to smaller towns and cities, and your city probably has a glue sniffing problem already among its youth. It has become the most serious problem faced by juvenile authorities in working with delinquents and youthful lawbreakers. One Utah junior high school found glue in 150 of the 1,000 lockers they checked. Some contained as many as 12 tubes of airplane glue. In one rural area in California, 14 youngsters were arrested in one day for glue sniffing. The District of Columbia recorded 300 cases in one 2-month period. Los Angeles had 77 glue sniffing cases in a 3-month period. And Phoenix, Arizona authorities handled 63 offenders in 4 months. The number is growing. The attraction to glue sniffing seems to prevail among boys and girls from 8 to 17 years of age. The average age of glue sniffers is 12. They are rarely younger than 8, but often older than 17. The glue sniffing habit is no respecter of economic status. People from the wealthiest to the poorest are affected by it. The effects of glue sniffing progress through several stages. First, there is mild intoxication, followed by excitement and a good all-over feeling. Often the youngster feels impulsive and aggressive. He's ready to fight. Then he becomes destructive and may try to harm people around him. After excitement comes drunkenness. The sniffer becomes uncoordinated and his speech is slurred. Then comes double vision, a ringing in the ears, and drowsiness. With continued sniffing, he progresses rapidly to stupor, unconsciousness, and coma. Glue sniffing can cause death. Many have already died from the toxic effects of glue sniffing. Other deaths have occurred which were not reported as related to glue sniffing. The brain is not the only organ affected by glue sniffing. The sniffer may develop blood in his urine, an indication of damage to his kidneys. He may develop damage that is serious enough to cause death. He can develop aplastic anemia, a condition in which the bone marrow is damaged so that it cannot manufacture blood cells. This too can cause death. Loss of memory is another result of glue sniffing. The sniffer cannot remember what he has done under its influence. Even after committing a terrible crime, the sniffer often asks in all innocence, "What have I done wrong?" Glue sniffers are a serious community problem for a number of reasons. First, they spread the glue sniffing habit by luring their friends into taking part. They create a crime problem. Often, they resort to stealing to meet their increasing desire for the glue. They are wide open targets for the peddlers of narcotics, since they are likely to try for a greater thrill than glue sniffing offers. They may seek this in marijuana or the heavier narcotics. It is possible to do something to halt the rise in glue sniffing. It will require the work of both parents and children. Education of parents and children concerning the dangers to health and life in glue sniffing is the first step. Glue and plastic cements should be made less available in the stores. Take them out of the serve-yourself category. Less toxic solvents are needed. Research can help the manufacturers discover these. Unpleasant odors can be added to the glue to make sniffing less desirable. Youngsters who sniff glue do not start out as criminals. They are individuals in need of psychiatric help. They need treatment to discover the emotional disorders that cause them to resort to glue sniffing in the first place. Parents don't need to play detective to know if their children are engaged in glue sniffing. The signals are clear, and alert, observant parents can read them. If one or more of these signs is observed, immediate steps to protect the youngster's life should be taken. If signs of glue sniffing are noticed by parents or teachers, the youngster should be referred to a doctor. The physician will decide if psychiatric help is needed. The child should be treated as an individual with emotional problems, not as a criminal. Take another look at that innocent-looking tube of glue. Remember, glue causes illness and death to the sniffer and makes him potentially dangerous to those around him. There's big trouble in that tube, and the person who becomes a companion to the tube will receive his share of the pain and suffering it contains. It's just a small, inoffensive tube, not even as big as a tube of toothpaste or shaving cream. But as small as it is, this little tube is filled with big trouble. When used for their intended purpose, these so-called model cements are a great boon to the household and to model building young people. But they're a dangerous commodity when used improperly. The big trouble that lives in a tube of glue is unleashed when its vapor is inhaled. Now, why in the world would anyone deliberately sniff glue? For it's intoxicating.
Well, good morning, Glue Troopers. I wasn't really planning to make a video today, but I wound up going through this Aurora catalog that Michael from El Paso sent me. And I thought, you know what? This is so cool. I'm going to go ahead and take some pictures of it and make a quick Aurora files out of it. This is the 1967 catalog. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few images of a time when companies put out these wonderful full-color catalogs that I can remember just constantly drooling over as a kid. Hope everybody's having a wonderful holiday, and as always, model on.
I'm a thud pilot. I love my plane. It is my body. I am its brain. My Thunder Chief loves me, and I love her too. But I get the creeps with only one seat and one engine too. She's faster than lightning, it says on her dials. To get a thud airborne takes only 2 miles. She's packed with transistors, black boxes, diodes. But stay alert, 'cause you might get hurt when she explodes. She totes more bombs than a B-17. My F-105 has a gun and she's mean. But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there, alone in the air in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flak like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, I'll have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.